Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, you might notice this guy. I've known him for 5 or 6 years. I've been following everything he's ever done. He was the first one to ever have me on his show, and he's been a mentor and a friend of mine for over almost 6 years now. Darrell, my brother, welcome to the show.
I mean, I'm ready to rock out that intro reel that you got. I'm just ready to rock on. Like, let's get out our air guitars and turn on Guitar Hero, and we'll just do the whole podcast. Like, let's put on a track and just try to like play it and sing it and all that. I love it. I love the energy. I love it.
I'm all about that. And that my friend William Maitre put it together. So I want to thank him.
Oh, that's awesome.
But before we get started, I always ask this question. What is your definition of resiliency?
I have a really good definition of it. So my parents are long gone, but my dad always used to tell me, "You're a trooper." And he was in the Merchant Marines in World War II. So I didn't really understand what a trooper was. Sort of I knew, but he would always say, "You're a trooper." And that has lifted me out of bed when I just didn't want to get out of bed for the past almost 30 years, since he passed away back in 1996, and it's my parents that instilled in me so much sacrifice to help me, just have artistic experiences, just go and explore theater and filmmaking and all that they put so much into me. The day before my mom passed away, I was clinging on to her. This was November of 2022. It was this month. I think, when did she pass away? The 14th? No. Yeah, she passed away on the November 14th. I clung to her and she said, "It's your life now." And it's a very powerful statement because what she was saying was like, my life, that's the end of my life. Concluded, the end. But you still have life. So it's yours. So what are you going to do with it? And I think that's a question that I've asked myself a lot is, well, what are you doing here? What do you want to do? And we all have a choice. We can be miserable. We can be down. We can let ourselves get down, or we can rise up. And that's your choice every day. So sometimes I fall off track with that, but then I always hear them again. And I know that they're rooting for me somewhere up there in outer space. And that's what keeps me going.
So, but now if somebody
that's my resiliency. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, if somebody would see how successful you are now, I mean, you've been on the airs for so long, you've helped so many people, but life wasn't always peaches and creams and apple pie. So give us a little bit down and dirty about where you come from, where'd you grow up, and how'd you become the man that you are today?
Well, I'm out here in Scottsdale, Arizona, but I come from a far off land called New Jersey that's named after a little island that's south of England called Jersey. And the New Jersey is kind of like the rat race, it's kind of like very competitive and very, who's going to be first. And it took me a long time. I always say moving out west saved my life because in 2002, at the end, and into 2003, 20 years ago, I started my business. And I moved to Las Vegas and I saw Denver, and now I've been to California and Texas and all over the place. And by separating myself from the tragedy, by moving and creating a whole new world with new experiences and new things around me, that really physically like put me in a different, place and mindset where I could discover a life of my own. Because when you have a family, especially like my parents were very overbearing, a little bit overprotective of me because I seizured when I was born and all that. So I needed to separate, from that in order to find who Darrell Stern was without them, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I'm in Jersey right now. Actually, I live in New Jersey, and I actually like the hustle and bustle. I like the always on, but then sometimes like I had to get away for this weekend. We went to Pennsylvania to hang out with the family. So I guess, I came from South Carolina, so I actually did the opposite. I moved from the beach to the city. So I kind of did the total opposite of what you did.
Yeah, and that's fine too, Richard. I mean, we're all on our path to find stuff. And I've been back to New Jersey now a lot because I turned 50 in 2021. Like, how did 50 years go by, right? So now I can say For half a century, Darrell Stern has been creating, magic on the internet. Everything he could say. For half a century, I've been breathing and eating food. But it's great to find a home. New Jersey is a wonderful state. It's a glorious forest. And out here in the West, we call it big sky country because you can look out to the horizon that way and to the horizon that way and see the whole sky. But in New Jersey, you can't because there's at least 3 to 4 to 5 story trees most of the time right next to the highway. You can't see the sky. And it's a glorious place to come back and visit. When you visit, try leaving your home state for almost 20 years and then coming back, right, to it. And all of a sudden you realize how beautiful it is. And all of the things that you didn't notice when you were, just there every day. So we're quite fantastic and rejuvenating in a lot of ways to dig back into your roots and realize, where you come from and observe it. So yes, as you said, like you love the rat race. Believe me, moving out west hasn't stopped my New York City, let's go, bada bing, go fast, be furious, get things done modality. But it has put some calmness in between that. But I still have a New York state of mind always.
So how did you get into this crazy world of marketing and digital marketing?
Sure. So I was a kid actor. I was the voice of Scooter Computer on Schoolhouse Rock. I met Steven Spielberg and auditioned for the Goonies. I worked with Howard Ashman. He wrote Little Shop of Horrors. He also wrote this failed Broadway show that I was in the workshop for. I didn't go to 10th grade to public school. I was in New York City working on this play. In the show was Jody Benson. He got recruited, Howard Ashman. There's a great documentary on him. I hope it's still on Disney Plus. They had it on for a while. I heard they were going to take it off. I don't know why. But he was recruited by Disney, and he wrote the lyrics that go, "Look at this stuff. Isn't it neat? Wouldn't you think my collection's complete?" And with Little Mermaid in '89, rebooted Disney as the animation, studio that it was supposed to be. Because there were no new animated movies for most of our childhood. They kind of wrapped it up in the late 60s and really didn't produce much. And then finally they rebooted. And thanks to Howard writing The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and Beauty and the Beast. So I got to work with a lot of really amazing people growing up that then, as we got into the late 80s, did some amazing things. So it was fantastic to grow up, in show business and theater. So I missed that Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio look. If you look from this angle, I know some of you can't see me if you listen to a podcast, but it's like 2% resemblance. Do you see it? 2%?
I can see it, yeah. Even with these goggles.
I'm like 2% Leonardo DiCaprio. So that wasn't good enough to make it, as a leading man in Hollywood. So in 1997, they had floppy disks at this store. It's not around anymore, called CompUSA.
Yep.
And it said, make a website. And we had imagined the internet, Richard. I'm sure you imagined the internet long before the internet. I mean, in Star Wars, Ben Kenobi says to R2-D2, plug in. He should be able to interpret the entire Imperial network, right? And he's plugging into this data port, right? And he's whirring around, and there's computer data coming back. And we were like lit up about what the internet would be and computers would be starting way back in like the early 80s. So
remember when we were growing up, we were watching the Jetsons.
Oh yeah, and before that you were watching the Jetsons, you would watch Star Trek. They had holographic phones and kind of like Zoom, like video talking things and all this kind of stuff. They would appear in the bridge, and they talk to the alien guy, like the video would come up and all that. All this science fiction stuff like we now have. And it's amazing that kids get to grow up and take this for granted. Like this was always here. So I got into HTML. I decided to start an ethical website design business because in the dot-com boom, New York City advertising agencies were charging $300,000 for a website that today you could make in Squarespace in 20 minutes. And they would literally, I remember this, they would print out the sitemap. It was gigantic. They would print it out, showing all the pages of the way, like just to justify the cost. A lot of business consulting and all that is a lot of BS. It's a lot of props, if you will, kind of justify the big price. So I just thought that was unfair. And my mom was a school teacher. So I love to start teaching how the internet works and how computers work to people. And I was making websites. I mean, we hand coded e-commerce websites. We didn't have Shopify or any of that like in 2003, 4, or 5. But gradually, the internet was speeding up. We got broadband around 1999, I think. I got the first, the cable internet. And then gradually, all of a sudden, they wrote the codecs, they're called, that would do video streaming like this. YouTube came out not until 2005. That's only what, 20 something or, whatever, almost 20 years old. Facebook didn't come along in 2010. It's only 15 years old. I mean, these are teenagers. The internet, a lot of the stuff that we use on the internet it's a teenager right now. It's not even through college. And it's really funny when people claim to be the expert at it. All of a sudden, they're the expert at it. And like, how can you be the expert at something that we're all still experimenting with? Right? I mean, yeah, there's some people that have success with it, but it's just kind of funny. So when the videos started to speed up, I started to see people making videos in business, and they're not actors. Okay. Next thing that happened is this thing called Snapchat, on the phone, right? And I'm talking to the Snapchat person, and one of these ladies named Virginia Salas Castillo had 22 million people watching her story every month. And I asked her, and I asked some of the other kids on there, I said, what are you doing? And they said, oh, we're Snapchat content creators. So just like I would get out my VHS camcorder and make stop motion movies of the Legos, the problem was the only person I could show that video to was my parents. And they were like, wow, they had to pretend, encourage me, like, that's so cool. That's really good. But all of a sudden, this became access. So I flew to London in 2016 to this party called Snap Happen, which was all the kids. I mean, I was double the age of everybody there. And what I saw was that their dad hadn't passed away. Their mom hadn't passed away. They hadn't, inherited a lot of money and spent it all in Las Vegas and then get divorced and then moved to Denver and all that stuff that happens to the rest of us. I'm sure you have a story too, Richard, of like all the stuff. No, you have a perfect lifestyle. That's fantastic. No, nothing tragic has ever happened to you.
No,
so
not at all.
As adults, we become more limited in our thinking, right? We become more hesitant and those kind of things. So I came up with the motto, you are a gift to the world and the world needs your gifts. What you can teach, what you know, and what you can demonstrate that other people take for granted, or that you may take for granted, other people are amazed by. So I started a process called Stern Storming, where I would pull out all of the moments from your life. I'd ask you crazy questions like, who was your first best friend, or who was your first kiss, or what project did you do in second and third grade that you remember, and all this stuff. So you really get to know the roots of somebody, like I'm going to write the movie of them. Then, as I just did with a gentleman named Paul yesterday, I go and visit with him, and we'll shoot 40, 50 videos of his stories in like a day. Because to me, your best marketing is already inside of you. It's the stories from your life. It's the stories of you teaching, and knowing from your expertise and all that. So that's how I now run the fastest moving video content marketing agency in the planet. I'm able to shoot a month to 6 months worth of content in 1 or 2 days, get it edited. I have playwrights and screenwriters and poets that write these social media posts, following after, again, what the younger kids are doing, like Shanae Murray on LinkedIn, and watching their technique and how they're doing this. So then I can bring that magic to us. Like I'm 52, and a lot of the people that I work with are in their 40s, 50s, 60s on up. And that's what I'm doing today. So that's a little summary of the whole journey. There you go.
Well, what I love about you, and I always loved about you, is if everybody's going left, you're going right. You do everything that everybody else isn't doing. And that's why I've learned a lot from you. Even just watching your videos and the way you interviewed me, it wasn't an interview. It was just two friends just sitting having a conversation.
Yeah.
So
and to me,
since we've talked now, when I first had the show, it was audio only, and now we're doing this, and everything has changed. But it seems like once old school and new school collide, that's when greatness happens, right?
Okay, so making a friend and having a good friend, that's been here all along, right? Mm-hmm. Being a good communicator versus a bad communicator has been here all along. Being consistent and persistent, which is two different things. Consistency is the routine that happens every week, every time, right? Persistence is the will to do it, the vision of what you want to get out of doing this consistent and persistent thing. That's been around all of human history. I mean, we're alive today because we were consistent and persistent against the lions and whatever else was trying to eat us or destroy us, or the opposing army, or whatever you want to call it, right? So all of those qualities are still there. The internet, okay, I'll sum it up. A lot of marketing people say marketing is about the numbers. It's about measuring the numbers, right? They go, oh, it's the data and the numbers. And of course, they're usually the opposite of me. On the disc profile, like I'm an I and they're a C or whatever that is. And that's like the opposite, right? And I go, okay, that's great. It's all about the numbers. What are you measuring? And they go, oh, the effectiveness of the marketing. Okay, so I say, well, what's the marketing? Like, and they say, oh, the media. And I say, oh, you mean the art. So I focus on creating better art and uplifting the art of communicating in this way, in this fashion where, like you said, you felt like you were just having a conversation with a friend. When I go and shoot videos with someone, it's very intimate. It's very close up. It's not, I'm presenting this. Look at my PowerPoint. I'm pointing at the sign, or you're standing way back like this, and the logo is way over here, and I'm real tiny on the screen, and I'm talking to you about it. No, I bring the camera right close. I teach people to imagine that they're talking to someone that needs them, and I give them the opportunity to care about that person, and tell them right to their face that they love them, that they care about them, and they have a magical gift that just might help them with their, ailment, right? With whatever problem that they're trying to solve. So, but we had that too in the past. Okay. We had this thing called voicemail. It used to be on cassette tapes. Do you remember your first voicemail machine with the cassettes?
I probably got some upstairs somewhere.
I'm sure you do. If you've been collecting, right. So we would have voicemail and we would call our mom, we're out somewhere. We call our mom or our wife or girlfriend or whatever. And we say, hi, Mom. Yeah, I'm not going to be home tonight until later. Please don't stay up late. Yes, I ate dinner, right? And we'd hang up the phone. We talk as if we pictured Mom right there with us and we were present with her, feeling what her reaction would be. So we would pause, right, as if when she received it. So there's another movie called Interstellar. I'm going to get sci-fi on you, okay? It's Matthew McConaughey. He's got to save the world. So his daughter's 8 years old. He's got to go in light speed far away in the galaxy to do something. I think it's go through a black hole or something like that. So he goes far away. So it's been a day and a half for him, but 28 years for his daughter, right? Light speed. So his daughter now records a video letter to him, and now she's 28 years old, and she talks about how she has missed her father so much over these 20 years, and she starts crying, and she talks, and she pauses, and she talks to him, picturing him with her. He gets the video. Now it's a video. She's not there, present, but she's in a video, but she's so present in that video, he starts crying. That's social networking and social media marketing. It's being so present with the person that's going to receive the message later, that when they receive it, they feel as if this moment in time, they're with you and you're one. And that's a performance art. That has nothing to do with computer data or algorithms or any of that. That's how humans can create the illusion, the suspension of disbelief, because you can watch me on video, Sally, Jeff, Joe, and 1,000 other people, but when they watch it, they think I'm talking to Sally, Joe, Jeff, or Susan. Right? You think I'm just talking to you. And that's the amazing thing of what social networking or social media has done, or even YouTube or any of these other things. So but you have to be in the moment. Okay, let me tell you a couple of more things. Hey, you really have to be an expert in your field. You can't bullshit this. Sorry if that's a bad word to say on the video.
No, this is our show, baby. We can do what we want.
I'll go back to my Jersey mode. I'll stop dropping F-bombs somewhere. So
forget about it.
Forget about it, for God's sakes. You're doing it. All right. Oh my God. So you have to be really present with the other person. You have to really know your stuff. You have to be an expert in your field. You have to practice and learn a little theater. I tell every business person, have you taken an acting class? Have you taken a playwriting class? Have you taken an improv comedy class? Have you got up on stage and do stand-up comedy, which is a lot of timing and a lot of good things in performance? Because that is key. That's more key to it than anything else that you're going to do online. It's not the click funnels and how the software works. Yes, a lot of that stuff is neat, but it's what you're saying, the language and the performance of you, that is what makes you, makes your business work and makes you a wealthy person.
And it's something that I work on every day, and that's something that Mr. David Meltzer said. Something I had him on the show, and he said, and I was pissed off when he sent me the message. He said, "You're more interested than interesting." I was pissed off at him. I'm like, "What is that supposed to mean?" He's like, "I want you to Google it," and I Googled it, and it was something that somebody once said about Dan Rather, that he was more interested than interesting, that he put the guest first, and I was like, now I get it.
Yeah.
So
You got
for
to
me,
be
it's kind of
careful.
like not talking over people, listening to what they're saying, and trying to create emotion when I have somebody on the show. I don't want to talk about if they've been on 10 podcasts this week. I don't want them talking about the same thing they talked about for the last the last 10 episodes. I want to get real and raw with that person and to feel their emotions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you've just pointed out a big flaw in our dependence on chat rooms and text messaging and email. You got that message from him and you got insulted. What the hell is this? I'm an interesting person. Who the are you to say that I'm not interesting? What do you mean I'm interested? Interested in what? What are you talking about? F you, when we're not face to face and we can't see the person's face, eye movements, gestures, the kindness, the tonality in their voice, we can misinterpret a lot.
Yeah.
This is one reason why I say to people that are running a business and they want to do digital marketing, my first goal is get them off the internet, right? And into either a Zoom call is the closest sometimes we can get, or an in-person, meeting or something like that. So they can really have a conversation, because the body language and the signals that you're picking up from the other person are going to lead you towards a sale much more than, oh, well, screw you, da 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 da. So it's nice that you just asked him, what do you mean by that? And he said, Google it. That's good that it's a, instead of saying, what the,
Yeah.
you, whatever. But that's, so I'll tell you the difference between New Jersey and the rest of the country, okay? Because I grew up there. New Jersey people are interrupters. This is what I mean by that, Richard, is I start to tell you something and you interrupt me and say, oh, I know. Oh, we know that. Yeah, we know that. Oh, yeah. We got that already. And when you do that, you're closing the door to a deeper relationship. You're showing a great amount of disrespect to the other person. And you're also being, as my father used to call me when I was 12, 13 years old, a know-it-all, meaning that you don't know it all, right? Allow someone else to give to you and just listen. And the more you can shut up, the more you can sell. Now, spinning this all around, Richard, I think you were the first person, one of the first I interviewed too, and all that. The fact that you have been consistent and persistent and said, look, this is all I want to do. I want to make this podcast. I'm going to have merchandise for it. I'm going to have sponsors and all that. And now you're up to episode 600 and something, and you have pounded away at this relentlessly, is probably in the 0.02% of people that have done that, Richard. And I'm very proud of you for having the guts to stick to something, for having the wherewithal to say, you know what, I want to interview another person. Well, how many podcasts did you record today? 6?
6 today, yeah.
Nuts. That is nuts. And to have that many people, including going all the way up to David Meltzer, and I mean, these are high-end people now that are seeing your work. They're seeing the consistency and persistence, and you know this. You just get to sit back and listen and learn something, which is fun, right? The more we shut up, listen, and learn, the more we're allowing ourselves to grow. So I really want to compliment you, because, when I met you, you were just starting out. I was in the middle of just starting out, and here we are, and we both stuck to it, and you're doing absolutely fantastic.
Well, and I appreciate you. But like I was just interviewing a young lady. She just finished a 30-year career with Boeing, being one of their CEOs at one point. And I said, you know, for me, I started the podcast because I'm a ninth grade dropout. So
Yeah.
I know I didn't know a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the dumbest person in the room because I already know what I know, but I
Right.
don't know what Mr. Darrell Stern knows. That's who I want to know. So that's why I glean on every guest that I get. That's why I love, because I do all the editing. So I listen to every
That's
episode
great.
2 or 3 times to keep on learning and more and more. So now I'm learning from you again, 6 years later.
6 years later, isn't that amazing? Yeah, it's podcasting in this interview process. A lot of people don't understand it because they think, well, why, what does interviewing anyone else do for me or do for my business? Well, in your case, what you're saying is, well, I wanted to learn. I wanted to be the dumbest person in the room. I want to hear how other people have lived their lives or how other people have been resilient, and have these different qualities so that I can see what someone else's experiences are and through that grow. So it's kind of funny. We're all getting to peek into this, as a piece of media, but really you're kind of selfish. You're doing it for yourself, and God bless you for doing that. And that's really funny because we talk in social media, they went nuts years ago with you've got to give to others. You've got to give, it's all about giving. And I go, yeah, but don't give away your secrets. Don't give away what people are paying for God's sakes. So it's interesting because you're giving, but at the same time, you're doing it for your own reason, your own selfish reason, which is you want to learn more. And that's absolutely perfect. And that's fine.
Well, like, I know that when I first started, there was no way that I would be able to afford to be able to sit in front of the authors of Rich Dad, Poor Dad for an hour and a half and
Yeah.
have them teach me. But I can have them come on my show for an hour and a half and I can ask them anything that I want with no questions, and it doesn't cost me a penny. So that's what I started to do, like having people like you, David Meltzer, Sharon Lecter, Greg Reed. I want to learn off these people, but I also want to have when they're on the podcast, they're teaching other people too. So everybody's learning and getting something out of
it. Exactly. And that's brilliant. I know Doria Cordova, she created Money and You, and she talks about her morning routine. And her morning routine is she meditates some, does some self-help things, but then she'll take another hour before any appointments in the day. She doesn't take any appointments until like 10 a.m. And she'll listen to a podcast. She'll listen to someone else and their advice and their talk and all that kind of things and learn. And I don't think that we're doing enough of that, especially in business, for our own business growth. Is we're on our business. We got to serve our clients. We're here, we got to do the work. And I'm one of those people that, I just run over to the computer and I'm doing the work for the other people. And that's great. But at the same time, it doesn't leave me much space for something next or to learn or to realize something even better that I can do or grow even bigger. Right. So I applaud you for this. I mean, I think it's really fantastic, Richard, what you're doing. It's awesome.
Well, like when I wake up in the morning, I go for an hour and a half walk every day. And in the last 6 months, I've listened to all Gary Vee's books again, all of Russell Brunson's books, all of Hormozi's books. So even though when I'm exercising my mind, my body, I'm also exercising my mind. And I think a lot of people should start doing that again. Even if you not a good reader, just put headphones in and get Audible for $15 a month. You can get so much knowledge.
Oh yeah. So from all of this that you've listened to and learned from, what have been some of the biggest lessons now that you see about business and creating wealth and resiliency? What have you learned? What is your conclusion about it?
That there is no such thing as a bad economy. It's just your economy. Like I have a friend of mine, he invited me to come to speak. I couldn't make it, but I'm going to be going to speak. His name is Todd Saylor, and he owns 14 companies. Got a 140-foot yacht, lives next to Tom Brady. And he's like, come on down, hang out on a yacht for the weekend. But he taught me that, money is just a tool. Yeah. And if you think you don't have enough tools, you'll never be able to build anything great. So, and I just went to Great Wolf this weekend, and there was so many. It was packed.
Wow.
But then I also passed a couple bars, and they were packed. So I think it all depends on where you spend your money at.
Yeah, right.
Is where you're going to be successful or be a failure.
Exactly. That's super amazing. I love that. Yeah, we have our own choice to build what we want to build, and it's our own shortcomings or our own limiting beliefs that are our own, shortcomings. So to go back to what I was talking about, about marketing, I had this brilliant idea because I've been doing this thing called SEO, and some people talk about Neil Patel and these leaders of SEO. They talk about it, but still, most of the time, everybody's talking about social media now, right? Or TikTok or something like that. But there's still this thing called Google that people search. So what I had this brilliant idea with this auto mechanic is I said, look, if I can get him to talk every week, 6, 7, or 8 videos fixing the cars, I can also take all of the words that he says in the videos and actually make articles out of those, and then interlink every time that he says a particular word, carburetors, brakes, single plane brakes, dual plane brakes, Maserati, whatever, and interlink them together. So I can actually have him, write the book on auto repair. So there's how some people look at marketing. They set up their funnel, right? Their one-page thing. I go, here's a piece of paper. You can hear it, right? Good thing. I can crumple this up. I can make it in a paper airplane. Yeah, I can throw it out. But if I handed you 500 sheets of paper, like from Staples, right? You can't rip that in half. Like I need one of those like carts or something to wheel those giant boxes of paper to my car. Like that stuff's heavy. So is your business paper thin, or do you want your influence and your presence on the internet to actually have that kind of depth to it? Another thing I talked about is character development. So there's this old TV show called MacGyver. Do you remember MacGyver?
Yeah.
Okay. Every single episode, he'd get trapped somewhere and he'd have like a stick of bubble gum, a piece of scotch tape and a toothpick. And somehow he would build a bomb or unlock the door or whatever using basic, nothing tools. And it's kind of based on some scientific stuff, and it's kind of neat. But every episode was the same. If you saw one MacGyver, you saw the plot for every MacGyver show. It did not have any character development or depth to it. When I do my Stern storming and you start telling stories from your life, you all of a sudden have this depth to you. And when you see how long a person's struggle has been, or how early in life they became talented at what they do, you can book more clients at a higher value proposition than ever before. So I have this cool story. And I only remember this in 2019. So every time I do my Stern storming, I tell the beginning of my life story, and it kind of like gets me thinking about this address, 3 Lisa Court in Colonia, New Jersey, where I lived from age 0 to age 6. So all of a sudden I remember this story. And what it is I had bunny pajamas, and I told my dad, I running over to my dad, Dad, get a pad and a piece of paper. My dad's like, what? I said, Dad, do it. And I said, I'm going to dictate to you my entire one-man show starring me as Peter Rabbit. Okay. Now, I couldn't read or write them, but I could memorize. So I told him the whole show with all the stage directions and all that so he could write it on paper. And he was so amazed by this, he took me to his college. And if I close my eyes, I can see the room. Like the 70s was cement, like I guess you would call it risers, and these cubes that were fiberglass, I guess, and the really bright colors. Like that was the 70s. So all the kids came in and sat on those. And I, without a moment of hesitation, put on my own one-man show. That moment is now in the center of my keynote, because at the end of it, I say, I want you to become my new Peter Rabbit, the story that I fall in love with and that I put on the digital stage. So the lady recently booked me for a big project, shooting all their videos and doing all the social media and all that stuff and YouTubes and social, what is that called? SEO. And I said, why did you hire me? What pushed you over the edge? And she said, you've been doing this since you were 3 years old. Pause. There was no internet in 1974. When was I 3 years old? I don't know. 1974. There was no internet. There was nothing to this stuff. We still had a black and white TV, for Pete's sakes, right? But she saw that I knew how to create dramatic media from a very early age. So my message to everyone today about resilience, a lot to me about your resilience is truly understanding what your gifts to the world are. You might be great at basket weaving. You might be great at listening. You might be great at being a mom. You might be great at making a coffee.
What the hell happened? I don't know what happened, guys. Hopefully we're going to get him back. Hold on. Let me see if I can. We kind of lost him for a second. So hopefully he's going to be back. Well, I love what he's talking about, because when I first was on Mr. Stern's show, I had no clue about being what social media marketing even was. I didn't even really know back then what a podcast was. Hold on a second. I'm going to try to get it back, guys. So, like I said, I don't even know what a podcast was. And so he taught me a lot about how to, there we go. All right, we got you. We got him back.
So I had this problem the other day, Richard, where all of a sudden the whole Google Chrome just disappears. Just goes, bye-bye, I'm tired. So I think we're saying we're so epic together that we're creating a cosmic vibration that's just shutting down the internet. It's like too much.
I'll take it. But what I was saying, as we were waiting for you to come back on, is when I first had you on your show, I was on your show, I had no idea what podcasting was. I had no idea about what the hero's journey was. I had no idea about getting people emotionally involved. Because if they're not emotionally involved, they're not going to get financially involved. So talk about
exactly
getting emotional, getting them emotionally involved in your videos.
Sure, most definitely. There's a couple different stories around that. The first is I worked with a lady named Jen DePlusis, and Jen DePlusis is a multimillionaire. She sold $1 billion worth of mortgages. But when you talk to her, she's extremely stoic. It's like, yes, no, okay. What is it? Let's go. And when I got to know her, her father was a screaming alcoholic, very, very bad. And at one point, she had to go into the bar at 8 years old, walk over to her dad and say, Daddy, will you please come home? And her father looked down at her and said, who the heck are you? So they eventually, too, found him one day underneath a house. He did like construction work and stuff, and he had all these beer cans around him. And he was kind of passed out, and they found him there. So she goes on and tells the story, and then she starts crying because she says that she loves him. That was her dad, right? And she loved the man that he could be, because sometimes he was, a very good man. And I got her just naturally by having her tell the story and tell the next story and tell the next story to finally break down and tell the truth, right? And in that emotional revealing of what was keeping her so stoic, why she was so yes, no, da, 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 da. And she's extremely stoic, businesswoman, great at building businesses. She has a wonderful course out. I got her to finally be what we call vulnerable, or what you call authentic. You hear these words, be vulnerable, be authentic, but it's not something you just say, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable now, right? And I'm going to tell you something. It's not that. It's a moment where all of a sudden the past or something that happened in the past comes up, and you really face it, and you really just talk about it and tell the truth. And it's those moments. I mean, the minute I recorded that video, I said, that's the one that's going to go super viral. It had nothing to do with her business. It had nothing to do with the course that we were selling. It had nothing to do with that. But it's the one where you touch your humanity. And it's in our sharing of our humanity and our commonality in that we all have something that we have had to overcome, or some great loss in our lives that still affects us today. It's in that commonality that we become this magical thing called approachable. And when we become approachable, that's everything. Because if you don't seem like you're the kind of person who, is talking to me, let's say, in these videos, you just seem like you're presenting something and you're going through the motions of it, but you don't seem like you're at all give a crap about me, then I'm not going to hire you. I'm not going to pay you any money. Right. So that's one big part of, it's kind of funny because I don't deliberately say like, you're going to cry on camera, but that's a lot of the times that happens. And it's funny because I'll tell you this, what I've seen, and I know you've interviewed a lot of people, the people that grew up with less, I mean, I'm talking abuse or poverty or whatever, do so much better later on in life because they have witnessed what it's like to have nothing, And me, I'm the opposite. I mean, I had a white picket fence, great parents, any toy, anything I imagine. I had a show business career, all that kind of stuff. I found it harder because I'm not instantaneously being called the star, right? I'm not just given the part automatically because I'm a talented kid, right? And I just go in on audition and that's it. I just got the part, So that took me a couple decades to come to terms with. This is going to be a lot of work. Right. And I can't just walk into the room and I was Scooter Computer in, 1983. So, hire me, I had to come to terms with a lot of the things too, even with that were my own limiting beliefs and my own issues and my own problems, to come to terms with things so I could do better in business.
And don't you for me, like you said, long-term consistency is better than short-term intensity. Like I just had Steve D. Sims. I just interviewed his son. He was on the show last week. But when I had his dad on the show, I talked about his mom, Claire. But I didn't ask Steve Sims about Elton John because every other show mentioned Elton John. But nobody mentioned to Steve what it was like being a 16-year-old bricklayer out in the cold and in the rain trying to make enough money to buy lunch for his now wife, Claire, when he was a girlfriend. It got him emotionally involved to where he stayed longer on the show, but he also shared it out because he knows that I actually cared about him and not just having Steve Sims on the show.
Yeah, there's a great movie about the lady that wrote the book for Mary Poppins, and Emma Watson plays the lady. What's the lady's name? I don't know. Who wrote Mary Poppins, the series of books. And she's talking to Walt Disney. And Tom Hanks, of course, who nails everything, plays Walt Disney. And Walt Disney tells the story of how he grew up in Minnesota. He had a paper route. He had to work from a very young age, 6, 7, 8 years old. And he had to go out in the snow, 10 feet of snow, plunge out into the snow in the freezing cold and deliver these papers. He didn't get to have a childhood. And that moment created Walt Disney. His he went broke over and over and over again. And he kept doing it and getting bigger. And, from Snow White to the other movies and then to Disneyland and then to Disney World, because he knew that he wanted to have a place where parents with kids could play and be like children and just imagine and not have any of the outside world interfere in that. And that was his mission because he did not have that. Right. And all of a sudden in that moment, in that monologue, you go, that's Walt Disney. That's the thing in him, the root of him. And that's what I'm trying to find. And I do find when I go Sternstorming with people is I'm looking for the root of you. I'm looking for the reason why you're doing all these things and the moment that triggered this and that, because, everything, this was because of that, was because of this, was because of that, which goes back to this incident or whatever when you were 2 or 3 or 4 years old. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something negative either. Sometimes it's because someone, offered you to get up on stage and sing and you sang your heart out and you're a gifted singer and now you're a multi-million-dollar rock star, but it was because somebody just pushed you up on stage and had you sing. But when you find that root in yourself, like my root is theater. My root is in directing, right? Theater. My root is creating and teaching people acting, right? Acting for the camera and being honest and sincere and vulnerable and just telling these great stories without any expectation and feeling that other person being there and even forgetting that other person is even there and just telling a great story. And that to me is my home. It's been in me since I was 3 years old and I made up my own show starring me as Peter Rabbit. So I ask you, and I ask the audience, when you're talking about resilient, if you're having trouble being resilient, perhaps you're not doing what you were meant to do or what you're truly gifted at. And even if you sell mortgages or you're a real estate agent or a banker or something, if you go back and you let's add some of what you were before into what you're doing now. Talk about when you used to play football. Talk about the injury that led you to stop playing football. So now you're doing something else like selling mortgages or selling houses. You know, I worked with a fitness instructor that plays the trumpet. I told him, play the trumpet while you're teaching fitness. He's like, what? Why would I do that? They're two separate things. I go, no, they're not. They're you. People will talk to me about LinkedIn, you know, their profile, and they say, well, I do this, this, and this. And I don't know. I don't want the other people to know that I do this and this and this. I said, why not? You're a freaking unique person. Be who you are and demonstrate all the wonderful gifts that you have. If you're an actor, a singer, a tap dancer, a stand-up comedian, and then you also know SEO and make YouTube channels, that's me, right? Like say that you do all of it, because that's what people will go, wow. We finally have somebody. This is what people tell me. They say, wow, we finally have somebody in marketing who gets it, who's, like you said, going the opposite way, right? Inverting it, doing it upside down and backwards. And that's what I love, right? I start upside down and backwards and create better art. The rest of it works out itself, right? I don't look at, well, how are we going to advertise this and put them in a funnel and make the email change? Yeah, that's all part of it. Those are technology and the tools. But I start with, let's create the highest and best art of your performance, of your speaking and communicating with someone. There you go.
And, you know, like, for instance, like when my dad passed away Valentine's Day 2 years ago, I was in the house for 10 days by myself, and I picked up this book by Dean Graziosi, and he talked about the 7 whys. And then when you get down to that second, third why is when it starts getting real. And then when I decided that, okay, the reason why I'm doing this now is if a veteran or a first responder starts a business, a 501(c), or just has a mission in life, they're less likely to pull the trigger if they have a mission in life, if they have a goal, if they have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And that's when I figured out, okay, this is my why, and this is what my gifts are.
Right.
Empathy is my gift. That's my gift to the world, is empathy. So why not do what I'm doing now? So it went from being one thing to morphing into something else. But I had to do the 7 whys first to figure out what my real calling in life is. Something like that is what you're talking about?
Yeah, there's a personal development. I call it kind of a trick. It's kind of a routine. And I ask you, let's try it. All right. So I'm going to ask you a question. Just give me a short answer, Richard. What do you really want?
To have a legacy.
What do you really want?
To change the world.
What do you really want?
To save more lives.
What do you really want?
That when my daughter and my grandkids Google Daddy, they're going to realize that he did change the world. He saved lives.
What do you really want?
Happiness, which I finally found, and peace. Happiness and peace.
So you know this. I asked you the same question 4 or 5 or 6 times, and you gave me a different answer. But with each answer, you're getting more specific, like peeling away the onion layers, right? Well, look at, I want to make sure that I had some self-worth in this world and my daughters know me, right? As you get through the layers, right, and you keep going, you get to the core and the more of the root of what the real thing is that you want, or why you're doing this and all this kind of stuff. And it just comes from, we don't want to be that transparent, you know what I mean? Or we don't even understand ourselves, like why we have this inkling. It's an intuition, right? I want to make this podcast. I want to talk to veterans. I want to and all this kind of stuff. And it's evolved over time, but that inkling comes from, it doesn't have to come from one factor. It comes from another factor. So here's the funny thing. People say, find your purpose, go find your purpose. And I always think of the dolphin, the porpoise. Let's go find some porpoises because they're cute and they go in the water. You don't have to find your purpose at all. Okay. All you have to do is be yourself and put yourself out there in a true and honest and authentic and transparent way. the people that bear witness to you will find a use for you. They'll find something special in you. They'll ask you, hey, can I sponsor your podcast? Hey, can I get 3 more of your t-shirts? I want to buy your t-shirts because I really, whatever, was inspired by, or you changed my thinking, or I learned something that day on your podcast, right? So all you have to do is keep sharing your gifts. Just keep doing this podcast, right? You just keep doing it. The world decides what your purpose is. The world gets something different out of every episode. If I played one episode and asked 5 different people what they got out of it or what was the purpose of it, they give me 5 different answers based on what their own belief system is or what their own filters are, right? So us as creators, right? You're a creator, I'm a creator, right? Of media. Our job is getting back to the loop around to the beginning is to be resilient, consistent, and persistent. And just on this mission of we're going to do this over and over and over again, just for the love of it. And as you said, just for the selfish reason of, well, I want to learn. Yeah, I didn't get to have an education and all that kind of stuff. So I want to learn from these people. And in that is the beauty of the art. It's in the eye of the beholder. Right? It does something different for you than it does for me, than it does for Dave, than it does for Joe, than it does for Susan. But the very fact that you're being consistent and persistent and creative and putting it out there, that is your greatest gift. It's just in the doing of it. It's not, and again, too, it's what you're getting out of it is a deeply spiritual thing. Hey, look, my kids can see me doing this, or my grandkids can see me doing this, and look at what I've done. Because maybe in the past you didn't feel like you had done much in life, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you said, hey, look, I want to leave a legacy. I want to do something more worthwhile so people don't think I'm a washed up jerk that never accomplished anything. Wonderful. Mm-hmm. So there's the impetus. The result is you feel that you've now accomplished a lot and everybody can see what you're doing. But at the same time, you're giving so much to other people that you don't even know. You don't go and interview all the listeners, right? Go, hey, what did you get out of that? Mm-hmm. But they're getting something out of it. So being selfish enough to want to get out there for our own benefit because it heals us and it makes us, release the emotion or release the thing. Or it's just us demonstrating and using our gifts so other people can say, wow, I don't have that gift. I need that gift. I need some of your gifts, to help me. That's called humanity. It's how we function. We can't make it on our own. When a baby is born, it can't. It needs its mom. The mother has to take care of the baby or it's not going to work. So we're born into being dependent on each other and needing each other and wanting to explore and communicate with each other. If not, then we die. And that's it.
I love it. So what's going on in Darrell Stern's world? How do we find you? How do we support your mission?
Super cool. I am going to tell you, you can check out all the resume, all of the stuff that I'm doing on a website called stern.marketing. And then you can also go, if you want some free lessons from me and all of that, you can go to Stern Storming. I'm also going to give you a number to call in just a second when I get logged into this, because it's really, really cool. So you can text the word radio. Oh, hold on. Okay. You can text the word radio to 602-726-3890. So that's 602-726-3890. And you can text the word radio, and I'll send you a couple helpful videos and a link to schedule some time with me. And we could go stern storming. I can tap into your gifts and let everyone else know what a gift to the world you are.
I love it, brother. And like I said, I'm so grateful that it's been 6 years in the making. Hopefully I made you proud. Hopefully you've seen some improvement, but I believe I'm just getting started. I believe so many great things are ahead. And with friends like you, I can't fail.
You're such a blessing, Richard, because there are tough times. There are times when you doubt yourself and you go, what is all this for? I'm divorced. I'm saying, oh yeah, I did this addiction to business, right? And it's gone up and down and backwards and forwards. And sometimes you go, why am I bothering? And then all of a sudden here comes, you that says, wow, you inspired me. You set me on a path of doing something now. And that's just the greatest gift. And that's us, right? You're a greater gift to the world than you know that you are, right? Just be you and get out there and share your gifts. So thank you.
I love you, brother. Have a great week, guys. Make sure you check him out. I love his Facebook page. Make sure you check him out on all social media. His LinkedIn page is fire. I just got to say that. I love your LinkedIn page. So, guys, as you know, I'm a big Joel Osteen guy. Every day we're live, we get to choose. That's why I wear this T-shirt. Today we get to decide be a victim or to be the victor. And if you're listening to this podcast, you guys are victors, no longer victors. And I love you guys. Darrell, my brother.
Amen, brother.
Have an amazing week. All right, guys, remember, vertical momentum, the only way to go is up. And I love you guys, and I'll check you out next week. Be good, brother.
Thank you.